I was going to read my Deus Ex Invisible War treatise post verbatim and then expound on that if I can think of anything. So I thought it would make a decent video of its own. So now I'm going to start reading it. I love Deus Ex 1 and Deus Ex Invisible War equally for different reasons. I'll be the only one to ever say it, but Deus Ex Invisible War really doesn't get the credit it deserves. I've made a fairly in-depth analysis of the game and its gameplay, story, and philosophy spread across at least a dozen 1 to 2 hour plus videos on previous alts. Most fans of Deus Ex 1 are clearly just along for the ride, because Invisible War, at worst, does nothing different than the original. It follows the formula almost to a T, including the main plot twists, pointless story arcs that can be magically undone by last-minute in-game decisions, which is basically button pressing. Most characters are direct replacements for ones from the original, such as Sid versus Jock, etc. Their criticism basically boils down to it wasn't PC exclusive, and fair enough. I wish it had been PC centric as well, but a simplified interface and some mechanics, a few even for the better, like passive flashlight or strength aug, doesn't significantly affect the meat of the game. The story in quite a few ways is more biting than the original, such as predicting the modern large language model chatbot aspect of mass surveillance being, NG resonance, NG resonance being an AI informant. Anyone who's claiming that Invisible War is a bad game, or even that it's not at the very least on the same level as the original, clearly aren't fans of Deus Ex as a game or story or even as a concept. They're fans of Warren Spector or Looking Glass or Ion Storm or whatever. It's like everyone claiming Daikatana is bad, despite being no worse than any other game of the era and in some ways better, simply because John Romero fanboys just wanted another Doom game. Everyone can agree that the universal ammo thing was stupid, and most can agree that the AUG skill system being folded together was too simplified. The levels really weren't smaller per se, they just had a lot more load transitions. Personally, I prefer denser interactivity over nondescript breadth. My main beef is that it leans more into the sci-fi or not as near future aesthetic, which I'm not a fan of. For the predominant urban landscapes, I much prefer the 90s era Neo Tokyo, Neo Hong Kong in this case, style that Deus Ex 1 has, but that's purely just an opinion. But pretending Invisible War is bad or disappointing is just a bandwagon meme, no different than when almost everyone used to hate Metal Gear Solid 2, but only now can accept how important of a game it was and is. Everyone finally caught on with MGS2. Maybe in another 5 to 10 years, I'll start seeing more individuals appreciate Invisible War. It could have been much greater, most of its development marred for the same reasons as Daikatana, but anyone who actually showed up for a compelling game can appreciate how salient Invisible War is, and the essence of what it was attempting to do within the restraints of its troubled development, as well as the technological limitations of its era. Alright, so, not sure exactly what I would say to expound on that, but, that's a pretty good summary, I would say, of Invisible War and my stance on it. I think the game is extremely underrated, and it's kind of interesting to see its comparison with the original, where the original really is like just ridiculously overrated. I mean, it's a phenomenal game. It's one of the best games ever made. Um, but we're talking to the level of individuals quoting it and posting memes of it that have never even played it, right? Like, it's beyond super saturated. And, like, I remember that "oh yeah yeah" meme from a decade ago, and I'm still not fully aware of the context of it, but essentially you saw a lot of individuals with a J.C. Denton avatar. And when I started to see this all the time, I was thinking it was, people who love the game or something. But when I looked into it, apparently some well-known YouTuber had changed their avatar to J.C. Denton, and the oh yeah yeah thing was like them quoting something he said or something like that. Like, I don't even know if the guy ever even played the fucking game. But it's this bandwagon shit, as I mentioned in my little treatise there. Oh, dude, I could write a literal book on this shit. Um, I'm seriously at that point, with the just go full Tracer Tong and just, be in a fucking cabin in the woods with a typewriter. And I mean, everyone knows that whole story, right? Um, but I mean, my whole life I've done that. I'll have points where I just shut myself out of everything, and I don't like write stuff per se. I have had like thought journals in the past, but typing stuff, I'll basically just be typing tons of shit, my thoughts and this and that. Probably a bulk of my ability to explain stuff how I do nowadays comes from, essentially 2 decades plus of doing shit like that. Even to the point where back when Invisible War was new and I first played it on Xbox, the original Xbox, um, just like my first introduction to Deus Ex was on the PS2 version a year before that. Um, well, back then I had a computer, it just couldn't play modern games, and so I would write all sorts of stuff, about the games, writing my own tutorials and shit. I never posted, um, but just anything I could think of about the games. And I usually keep sort of a thought journal, but it's a text file. And last I checked, it has, I think it's like, now I don't even remember, but it's like hundreds of thousands of words. I mean, it's a pretty long text file, but I still have backed up stuff I wrote over 20 years ago where, like back when I first played Half-Life 1, I was obsessed with it. And I didn't really understand the technical jargon stuff, but I would just write stuff that sounded cool. And I wrote my own like little backstory for Gordon Freeman. And then, like, this is what people used to do with video games, 20 plus years ago. But, you know, you don't you don't have individuals really doing stuff like that oh yeah yeah thing. It reminds me of the clippy bullshit from recently. Just more of this corporatist BS. Yeah, let's all model ourselves after a software construct directly descended of corporate terrorism, and it's like, fuck, it sounds like Invisible War all over again, right? And it's like, don't y'all are just co-signing Microsoft. Well, like, you're not making a point, but you can tell the idiots on a modern video on YouTube by the fact that they have a clippy avatar, right? It was sort of like that 10 years ago with the JC Denton avatars. And it's just this false signaling thing of like you saw the avatar and you thought, oh hey, here's a fan of the game, and a lot of them like never even fucking played it. And it's just weird how something can transcend the very thing that it is or whatever like that. But you get quoting and all this stuff, and like they never even played it. Have they ever even watched a fucking review or a speed run? I don't know, but I could easily, I mean, I have, write, tons on just, Invisible War itself, or the first game. If I had the ability, like the capability to detach to the extent that I really want to, I would like truly do analyses of video games or other media that no one's ever seen before. Really, I'm just relegated to snippets, essentially. And even now, when I'm limited to 15 minutes, but I don't know. this is one of those rare instances where I, you know, wrote down and actually took a picture with my other phone of a few things I wanted to cover. And so, like, that's how I read my little treatise thing. And it's not really a treatise because it's not kind of looking that deep into it. The subject matter, I use the terminology kind of half facetiously, mostly just due to the philosophical angle of Deus Ex One and Invisible War. That's to a degree of like almost being sort of cringy, kind of sniffing its own farts type of shit. Like the J.C. Denton, his lair in Invisible War, and he's talking about de Tocqueville and all that. And like even Ross, mentioned that in his review of Invisible War. And I sit there and I think, oh yeah, very astute of him. He read the Wikipedia article on Alexis de Tocqueville or whatever. But like I reference that. Like I say that sort of half jokingly, but also to make a point, kind of about the oh yeah or whatever J.C. Denton Avatar thing or like the Clippy thing, where you get a lot of these pedestrians that just show up to feel like a part of something and they really don't know fuck all about it. And kind of, further reinforcing my comments about the hidden, so to speak, genius of Invisible War as a meta narrative, not just for the first game, but also like a analysis of the player, sort of like Metal Gear Solid 2 did. But really, it's not just like it's more of a poignant social commentary than it might look to the average individual that frankly doesn't think very much in the first place, right? Like anybody who is really like a deep thinker or whatever is not doing this stupid clippy avatar shit or even the JC Denton stuff. But it just more importantly how it just sort of kind of just clouds everything, right? So used to, if you saw an avatar, you would assume, oh, it's from this game or that movie or this or that, or they must like the thing. And it's like, no, they showed up to quote some random fucking YouTuber. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what else I could really add to, you know, my description of Invisible War there. That's yet another thing. It's for a different video at a different time. That's realistically probably never going to happen. But yeah, Invisible War is one of those games. Sort of like some of the music I listen to. It was like Polish grindcore or like very few bands from other countries, but for whatever it's like Czech and like Polish grindcore. I sort of get a feeling like that with Invisible War as a game, where it's one of those things. It's like a piece of media that feels like it was made for me specifically, and of course I know that it wasn't, and that's kind of part of the dystopia, especially with the fake punks and fake goths and all that other shit of like, I mean, even Warren Spector, as I mentioned in another video, he made one of the most significant commentaries on human just social, existence or whatever, existence within their social depravity of all time. And according to himself, I mean, they were just joking on conspiracy theorists. It's like, oh, what if all conspiracies were real? And it's like, dude, I love how that's like one of the ultimate conspiracies is this conspiracy to make conspiracy and conspiracy theory, like magical phrases that to a retarded ape, human automatically discredits you. Humans are just obsessed with magical phrases like that. Well, hey, look, there's another, uh, you know, reference or whatever to Deus Ex. Wow, you kill Anna Navarro or Gunther Herman with a magical phrase, right? Yeah, that's your kill your social credit score phrase, right? Oh, you said the wrong thing, you acknowledged the wrong fact, and it's like, whatever.